G'day, hi and welcome. It is toasty out there. It is 25 degrees. Must acknowledge over hot dog, poor baby. So we have to acknowledge our princess. That you're liking, Your Highness, Your Majesty, Your Royal. Can I go carry on to do my stuff now? So make sure your pets have lots of water on the hot days. Yeah, she's good. Okay, now I know most of you guys look at me and say, this guy's just a pretty face. I know. I get that all the time. Let's say you bought a sport bike, okay, and you want to adjust a chain, but you don't have the proper stands. So I come up with a method that, there's always a method to my madness, and it looks like it's going to work. I want the tire off the ground. Well, I only need, basically tire off the ground about an inch or so. It doesn't have to go, I'm not putting the bike 5 feet in the air or like that. The reason why is I don't want any tension on the back tire when I'm adjusting the chain. Problem is I don't have proper stands. I found a used stand for $70, a rear stand. I found a set, front and rear. I don't know if they'll fit for this bike, for $100, but I don't have $100, right? But I do have a jack. I do got another jack. One nice thing about having a yard full of dead vehicles is there's always a jack to cannibalize. But it's like I must have done this trick a couple of times because Jack's gone, my car behind, Jack's gone, the truck, the Jack's gone. It was down to one truck. So I think all the Jacks have been removed from all our dead vehicles. So the Ford, which is just draining right there. Yeah, it's like a little waterfall coming out of it. It rained a lot the past couple of nights. But the goal is simple, I might not adjust the chain today. I might do it Monday. What I'm going to do today instead, I obviously got to lube up the chain. I'm a bit of a maintenance freak. Going from cruisers to a sport bike, especially after 20 years hiatus or whatever, and this is my first season really, second season back on the road with this bike, end of last season and pretty much the beginning of this season. Chain drive bikes, I've had belt, I've had chain, I've had shaft, and chain is always the highest maintenance. It just is what it is. But there's things, the benefits of chain is usually it's what gives you the most ripping speed, right? So you should check your chain, consult your manual. It's going to be different in just about every type of bike, but it really goes more to your riding style than even what the manual is just kind of like, okay, well, if we give it the keys to an idiot, that's just going to, crack the throttle everywhere he goes, he could probably get away with this. So here's the maintenance interval. Normal people, they probably don't have to do it quite so much. Now, my chain isn't completely horribly out, but it is out. I know it's out because I'm starting to feel, the slightly looseness in the back end. It's not, when you're downshifting, it's a little more sloppy, stuff like that. Just the stuff that you get with chain drives. Running a chain too loose will chew up your sprockets, and that's not good. And it allows your suspension to bottom out and top out because it's not a proper adjust. If your chain is too tight, it's still bad. Tighter's not necessarily better. There's a sweet spot that you have to go with. If you have too tight a chain, your suspension can't work, and then every time you hit a pothole, it's your chain is taking the dampening, not your suspension. So you have to find out where the sweet spot. On this bike, it's like between 1.5 inches and 1 3/4 inches. Some bike it's 1 1/4 inches. It varies all over the place. So consult your manual. But the big thing is you really don't want to have any weight on the tire. I know there's one of my friends, he adjusts his chain on the ground, and I'm just like, I don't know, just that little hang up might take your alignment out. And on a bike like this, you'll really notice at that speed. You might be fine up at the speed limit, but then if you crack the throttle, all of a sudden you go into this crazy wobble because your alignment's just at that point where you won't notice it until you're going too fast, and then not that I go too fast that often, but sometimes you have fun with it, right? So you want to do it right. You have to get the back tire off the ground is what I'm saying. It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. The way I'm going to do it, see, I got a little jack down here. And that jack is just basically going to be the stabilizer jack. Now, I want to stabilize that a little bit better. It is an awkward spot to get in there. This bike you can put a center stand on this bike. However, it's probably the same cost as the racing stands. Not a tour bike, so yeah, if you have to change a tire on the side of the road, a center stand you could change your front and back tire with a center stand. It's just there's a little trick to getting the front end up. If you have somebody fat and heavy with you. They just sit on the back of the bike while it's on the center stand, and once the back tire's off, it'll take it down, and then you can remove the front tire. But on this bike, it's not like I tour cross country with it, so I'll take the risk of not having the center stand on there. But basically, there's a couple of ways you can do this. What I would do before you do anything is mark. You can use nail polish, you can use marker, whatever it is, just to mark where you were on both sides, especially if your bike was in alignment, just so you have a reference point to return to should you not get it right. Then what you do is you crack that nut. You can crack this. There's a couple of ways to skin a cat here. You can crack this nut first, and then just kind of leave it kind of semi-snub, and then crack that nut, or you can crack that nut, then crack this nut. You don't have to take it all the way off. Just loosen up so that you can move the tire back and forth, right? And you do the same on the other side. It's a little different on the other side because you can see that the axle is basically, it's solid in there. It's not going anywhere. It can't roll. You can do it with one socket or one wrench. And then the same thing, you crack this nut here. Now you got some reference marks on some bikes. This bike, the reference marks are on the other side. But you have to adjust both sides, and you just do it incrementally. Okay, maybe there's no markers on this, but it doesn't really matter. You can use stuff as reference points. Make your own. You can even mark your own or whatever. But you do a little bit of a turn here, a little bit of a turn there. But before you turn anything, what you need to do is set your bike up to find the tight spot in the chain. I've seen a couple of videos that right there it looks really loose, but there's a chain that's going to run tight at a few spots. And there's going to be one spot where it runs the tightest. And the only way to do that is either get the bike up. You can walk along and just roll the bike and use your fingers, but it's best to have the bike up with the back tire off the ground so that you can just find the tight spot. And wherever that tight spot is, like it's really loose there, it's really loose there, so you can push up on it, pull down on it, push up on it, pull down on it, push up on it, pull down on it, and then roll the chain until you find the tightest spot. Now, if you can't find a tight spot at all, like my chain, it looks like it's really out here, but again, I'm not at the tight spot. Once you're at the tight spot, that's where you want to adjust from. So what you can do for the tight spot is, again, you can mark it some way. You could use nail polish. You could use, those metal markers, whatever it is, just to here and here, so you know where you're lining up. And that's where you'll check your adjustment from, where it's the tightest. And you have to do that before you do all the other stuff. If not, you might say, okay, let's say this is the slackest point of the chain, and you adjust it here. When you get to that tight spot, you might have way too much tension on that chain, and you'll either blow out a chain, put more stress on your transmission. There's a whole bunch of things that tighter's not necessarily better, but you'll definitely wear out your chain. At best case scenario, wear out your chain because it stretches under load. A lot of people don't realize, but your chain is a part of your suspension. On a motorcycle, because it takes, when the suspension compresses down to the max tightness of the chain, okay, after that, if it's really tight, then the chain has no give, and it will stretch. So when your suspension compresses all the way it can, which is known as adjusting your sag. I'll get into that in a later one, but that's how I'm going to do it. And I'll get that done, and then I'll video it when I do it. I just don't think I'm going to do it today because there's a couple other things I want to do. I'm going to find where my tight spot is on the chain just to see how far out I'm at. I wanted to see if I can make this work. So I can make this work. Again, the tire only has to come off the ground an inch. It doesn't have to be anything significant. I don't even care if the bike is completely upright. But as long as it's up there, I don't have a regular jack stand to use. But that will work. It might not be the best thing to use, but it will work for this purposes. I'll just have to be extra gentle. What I'll probably do is block up the front tire so the bike can't roll forward. Once I do the full adjustment on the chain, I'll show you what I did. I don't know how far out it's. I know it's starting to get out. Now, like I said, I'm a bit of a maintenance freak. Staying on top of this stuff because I really want this bike to make it through the entire season without any hiccups. Well, everybody wants that, but if you don't stay on top of the maintenance stuff, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure in these situations. And if you don't stay on top of it, it sucks when you're riding along and you have a chain blowout on you. I've had that happen twice. not on this bike, but on other bikes, and it just kills you morally. It's like, stupid chain. But I knew the chain was going anyway. That chain is relatively new, so if I can get like 5 years out of that chain, I'd be like really great. Be lucky if I get 2, but it depends on how you ride, right? I'll probably get 2 or 3 out of that chain. I'm a little tapped for cash right now, so I got to maintain things even more stringently because if not, I'm going to end up with, a bike that, is just going to be sitting there waiting, waiting for all kinds of parts. But things do wear out, just so you know. But I did notice something. My signal, I don't know what happened there. It's the only one that loosened up, so I don't know what happened there. So I'll have to fix that before it becomes a major problem. Yeah, because it's not like I could probably buy replacements for that if they're not OEM. So I think once they're done, they're done. But yeah, the thing, I got about 8,000 kilometers on this bike since I bought it. 2,000 of, well, maybe more than 2,000 now from just this year alone. Although I put the bike on the road late last year, I didn't think I got that much mileage on it from last year, but I actually did quite a bit for the short, 2 or 2.5 months that I had it on the road. Now I'm like, we're not even halfway through, we're about halfway through June, and I'm, hopefully still have the whole season left there. But the thing that's going to more ensure that you get a full season is the maintenance. So the chain, I looked at the manual and was saying check it every about 3,000 miles or about every 5,000 kilometers is usually when you need a chain adjust. Whether you need it or not. And then I was watching some videos, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty maintenance. Maintenance nut, whatever. And then I was watching another guy's video saying, check it every 500 miles. I'm like, or readjust it every 500 miles. I'm like, that's a little bit much. I don't think it's going to be out that much, unless it's really hard riding you're doing. But I do check my chain every run. I check all the nuts and bolts, the brakes. I do a 5-minute inspection twice a week. If I'm going on a long trip, I always check all the fluids, check my tire pressure. Just regular stuff. It takes you 5 minutes to do it. And what's your life worth, Are you in that much of a rush that you can't wait 5 minutes? If I'm going to go on a big trip, usually I do all the checkout on the bike, the oil, the coolant, check, see if anything came loose. I check all that out just, like the day before the run. Check my battery posts, make sure that they're on there good. It's a good idea to check that stuff. It's just, it's not hard maintenance. It's just more like inspection. Think about maintenance like an inspection. But when it comes to your chain, yeah, you're going to have to get your hands dirty and stuff like that. Usually I have to wax this chain about every 150 clicks. It starts to get a bit dry. So about every 100 miles, I'm re-waxing the chain. But yes, I do have to do an adjustment on this bike. It's something severe. So I'll get it set up. And today I'm just working on how I'm going to set it up so that I do it safely, because I don't want this bike on its side at all. Not so much just the danger fact. It's just I don't want to wreck the paint. I don't have the money for the proper jack stands. Hopefully soon I will. And then you can do this stuff a lot easier. But yeah, I'm definitely 5,000 miles. So I'm about 2,000 miles over the last chain adjustment. So I think it's time to do it. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. So there you go.